Long acknowledged as the modern master of horror, Wes Craven returns to the screen with perhaps his most frightening creation yet, Shocker! The former college professor turned mild-mannered film director has a history of creating some of the silver screen's most horrifying characters.
I was always drawn to dark places. I was born in the years of the World War II. I got started in film by being taken to films by people that were babysitting me when I was a kid. So we would go and watch all this death and destruction from Europe and, you know, bodies flying every which way in these tele-news theaters. And I was intrigued by film at that level.
And that interest led to a very successful career as the creator of Freddy Krueger and the director of such frightening films as A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Serpent and the Rainbow, and his latest, Shocker.
Shocker is an interesting film in the primal sense because it has to do with fears that pop up in all cultures. So in order to get into those places, I need to find out what people are really afraid of.
I told Wes about my fears. I heard these stories a couple years ago about this horrible old couple who'd kidnapped a woman and kept her in their van, you know, for like 2 years, and she was demented and abused for like 2 years. That was exactly what Wes loved to hear.
This is the van of Horace Pinker, who is the villain of our piece. And you can see it's a very ratty-looking van. Horace Pinker is a very ratty, sort of terrifying man who repairs television sets and murders people in his spare time.
Jonathan, help us!
Come on!
When I was a kid, I had nightmares, and I always remember that feeling of being afraid to go to sleep at night because I was going to have another bad dream. I always set my films within the house, because I've always felt that personally for all of us, the most terrifying things were in the first 5 years of life.
I was beating you real good when your mama tried to stop me with that gun that she brought into our happy home.
Horror films are very strong when they deal with the family.
Like father, like son, huh?
And that has to do with fears of abandonment by your parents or fears that your parents are really violent.
Lieutenant Parker, with the killer now murdering your own family, will this intensify...
Especially with television and the advent of news coverage, we've seen a tremendous amount of violence in our lives. And that is frightening. And I think horror films, in their best sense, process that in some way. They come to terms with it, they deal with it. That's why I think it's very dangerous to try to suppress horror films, because they are dealing with a larger, unsuppressible violence in our cultures. You know, it's life at a much more immediate level. And it's one that somehow I've kept in touch with.
I can feel him. I know what this guy looks like.
Wes Craven, the acknowledged modern master of horror and the creator of A Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger, returns to the screen with perhaps his most frightening creation yet in Shocker.
The name of our villain is Horace Pinker, and Horace Pinker is designed to retire Freddy Krueger.
Saving it.
So I was looking for a creation of a new character that would be just as exciting, more exciting than Freddy. And I wanted to have him occupy a world that was similar to Freddy's dream world, that was just as powerful, just as pervasive, and just as familiar in its own strange way. And of course, it was television itself. Television is the daytime dreaming of our nation. So I thought, who is the Freddy Krueger of that state? So I invented Horace Pinker. He's able to travel over the transmission lines of television. He's able to come out of one television set, recede into it, go into it, and come out in another one in another house, another locale.
But despite his seemingly invincible powers, Pinker faces a first-rate opponent in the form of Jonathan Parker, played by up-and-coming star Peter Berg.
My character's a very, very tough young man. He doesn't enjoy seeing people that he loves killed, but there is a certain sense of satisfaction in personally taking on this man and personally challenging him and not needing anyone else but himself and his own athletic abilities to fight this guy.
It's a non-stop action film. I mean, I think Peter Berg had 3 days off out of about a 61-day shoot. Somehow, Peter's character is able to, in his dreams, enter Horace Pinker's murders. So he's actually there as they take place, and when he wakes up, he has actually witnessed a murder.
Get him out of here!
Come on!
And as the story unfolds, we find out that there's a very strong indication that Horace Pinker might be Jonathan Parker's actual father.
I was beating you real good when your mama tried to stop me with that gun that she brought into our happy home.
Horror films are very strong when they deal with the family, because I've always felt that personally for all of us, the most terrifying things were in the first 5 years of life. Fears that your parents are really violent.
Like father, like son, huh?
Jonathan doesn't need a lot of people in his life. He takes what he needs from the people around him that he loves.
One of the people Jonathan relies on for help is his girlfriend Allison, played by Cammie Cooper.
When I come to devising the female characters in my pieces, I always make them very strong. And Cammie's character was interesting to me because I knocked her off very early. And it's fun to do that to an audience because they think they know somebody and suddenly they're dead. And then I say, well, you know, in Wes Craven films, nobody's totally dead.
Jonathan.
In addition to his girlfriend, Pinker kills all of Jonathan's adopted family, except for his policeman stepfather, played by Michael Murphy.
I play a police lieutenant in a small town in Ohio, Maryville, Ohio. Very early in the picture, his entire family, with the exception of one stepson, is wiped out. There's been this rash of killings.
I dreamt of the murders, Doc. Just the way they happen.
He becomes a believer over the course of the film, you know, and then by then it's almost too late.
That's the scariest part about making a horror film, because I know by now that if you don't find the villain that is really going to scare everybody's socks off, you might as well never go out and shoot the film. That's the scary thing about it. You never know whether that person is really out there. And finally, Mitch Pileggi walked in the room, and we all just went, whoa.
I think this is a character that I wanted to do for a long time. I think that one of the things about him that hopefully is terrifying is the fact that he is a real person. You know, he is a killer, and there are people like that.
Well, I think the thing about the Shocker, to be foremost to people's minds, is that it's, by and large, is a great roller coaster ride. I think it's going to be a very popular film. I think Horace Pinker is going to take his place right up there with Freddy as one of the scariest, innovative people around in the pantheon of horror.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.